Why is Adam Schiff so worried about this FISA memo? What is his connection to the Rothschilds? Coming up next on Deceptions of the Ages News. Hello everybody and welcome again to Deceptions of the Ages News. As you can see, we've really got a lot of subscribers and every day we're getting more and more of a following. So if you haven't subscribed yet, I just want to encourage you. We are sending a message to everybody that we know what's going on, and we're reading books like Deceptions of the Ages, and we know the background on what's happening today. So we're going to talk about that more in a few minutes. But right now I just want to thank you guys again for subscribing. If you haven't done so yet, please hit that subscribe button and leave comments. I post every Mondays and Wednesdays unless there's a special event like today's FISA release. So generally you can see me at the beginning of the week. So thanks a lot for subscribing, you guys. Again, thanks for your comments. It's really great to interact with you, and it really, is awesome. So let's get on with our discussion. All right, so today is the day of the release of the FISA Memo. Now, I'm on Pacific time, and it is about 11 o'clock in the morning. And as of right now, I've been watching the internet. I haven't seen that it has been released yet. And I'm starting to question as whether or not it is going to be released. But just let me tell you, after you see this video, you're going to understand it doesn't matter whether it was released or not. You're going to get enough of the gist of what was so important about it and why it was even passed around or even written to begin with. So let's start by talking about who is Adam Schiff. Now, in order to understand who Adam Schiff is, let's take an excerpt from my book, Deceptions of the Ages, Mormons, Freemasons, and Extraterrestrials. And you guys just take a few seconds and read through this passage right here so you understand who the Schiff family actually is. Okay, got it? So now you have a pretty good background on where the Schiff family comes from and where Adam Schiff's family and their money and their interests lie. All right, so Adam Schiff, the great-great-grandson of Jacob Henry Schiff, a friend of the Rothschilds and guys who were sent over here to establish the Rothschilds empire and to keep their money safe. Keep their money safe, you say? What are you talking about? Well, let's go back a little bit further in time to the beginning of our country. Now, when our country was founded, or around the 1820s, there was a family called the Rothschilds in Europe, and they had managed to secure the printing of all of the currency for England, France, the Papal States, known as the Vatican, and for Italy. So by the 1820s, the Rothschilds print all of the money. Now remember, this is money that's printed from paper and it's charged interest on. So if you can get a thing going where you can print paper and charge interest on that paper, you're going to do pretty well. So the people in the United States, they knew what was going on back in Europe, and they didn't really want any part of it. Now, there's a lot more details about this in my book, Deceptions of the Ages, and I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it now, but they needed this bank. The Rothschilds knew that America was going to be the big thing. So they wanted a foothold. They wanted that bank, that currency printing scheme in the United States. But it was voted out in 1812, and right after it was voted out, the British Army attacked us, right? And they burned Washington and everything. And then President Andrew Jackson, he finally he killed the bank and actually wrote that on his tombstone because once the bank's charter had expired, he made sure that it was not renewed. So then we go all the way to the Civil War. Now, during the Civil War, the Rothschilds wanted to charge the United States or the northern states 33% interest on their printed money. And so Abraham Lincoln told them to take a hike. But after the war, they soon got their revenge. And they waited until after the war because of what would happen next. Now, before we go into what happened after the Civil War and after Abraham Lincoln was killed or assassinated, also don't forget that there was one other president since then who wanted to take us off of the Federal Reserve System, and that was John F. Kennedy when he signed Executive Order 1110. And we know what happened to Kennedy afterwards also. So the two people that tried to take us off of that system, we know what happened to them. Okay, so these Rothschilds, they want this bank, they want it in the United States, and they want to earn money off of us. So how are they going to do that? They need to have agents in the United States, right? Well, by the end of the Civil War, a lot of things had changed. Now, before the Civil War, the U.S. government was very small, and it was very hard to raise money because nobody wanted to pay any taxes to it. So at the end of the war, it was the first time that companies like Colt and Oscar Mayer hot dogs, you know, you eat those Oscar Mayer hot dogs, Procter and Gamble, they make your soap. These companies, and DuPont with their chemicals, these companies for the first time were able to secure huge government contracts. So now that there are these huge government contracts available, the Rothschilds, they want in badly. So it took them a long time, actually. It took them until the 1913, right before World War I broke out. And World War I would have never broken out had we not voted in the Federal Reserve System. Because once we voted in the Federal Reserve System, then it was possible, and also that was the first time there was an income tax. So suddenly all the Americans are on the hook, right? And then the Federal Reserve System comes in and taxation on your income, and suddenly there is enough money to be borrowed for the nations of Europe to go to war. And so if you're one of these people that says, oh, that's not true, then I just ask you to look at Paul Warburg. Now, Paul Warburg was brought over here in 1907 before they engineered a stock crisis, but he was brought over here. His brother was the head of the German secret police. Paul Warburg was the first head of the Federal Reserve in the United States. Brother, head of the German secret police, who we just happened to be at war with, right? And so a lot of stuff went on that people don't know about in Deceptions of the Ages, if you want to look at it. Kind of scary stuff. But anyway, you understand that the Schiffs are here, the Warburgs are here, there's other people here like J.P. Morgan. They're here to protect that Rothschild money. Okay, so we talked about Oscar Mayer and we talked about Colt Armaments and DuPont, but with the invention of things like the automobile and the radio and the television, well, there were a lot of small companies that started up, little startups, you know, even back then they had startups, but who would ordain some to survive and others to die? Well, that's where you get into the Freemason connection. And so companies that were involved in Freemasonry, or their heads were, they were able to use their connections to get themselves more business. But we need to get back to Adam Schiff. Okay, so we understand that the Schiffs and the Warburgs and the J.P. Morgans and the Carnegies, not so much the Carnegies, but they're all there, the Harrimans, the Bushes, they're all there to protect this Rothschild's money, right? So, what about in 2016? Now in 2016, remember, it is 103 years since they established the federal income system, and the Federal Reserve, right? So they get taxes, and they could print this money. And the people who own the Federal Reserve, if you look at who owns it, it's all the same people that I'm talking about. So the Schiffs in 2016, remember, since probably the Clinton era when we signed GATT and NAFTA, the United States has basically been for sale. Okay, now just look at our history. We have had massive immigration. Why have we had so much immigration? Now, I've been overseas I was in Oman and Saudi Arabia, and I know that thousands and thousands and thousands of visas are given to these people. Now, why is that? Because our companies are over there, and they are making promises. Our companies, not our government, but our corporations are over there, and they're making promises to people, and then the embassy just says, yep, and pushes them through. So it is not really just the government. I mean, it's everybody. It's these corporations. So they are pushing millions of people into our country, and they have been for many years. Now, the United States, and I know this may be shocking to you, but if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. We've been for sale since the 1990s, okay? So we're for sale. In 2016, remember the Clinton Foundation? Everybody was buying a chunk, right? The Russians were buying their uranium, and on and on and on, but everybody was getting a chunk. Now, in 2016, when all of this stuff is in place, everything has been sold, suddenly something happens that nobody thought of. Through things like the internet, where people like us could talk to each other, and we could say, no, I don't really agree with that point of view. We no longer had the television telling us what to think, and more importantly, we didn't have the television telling us what everybody else was thinking, so we would just do what everybody else was going to do because we're like animals, right? We're sheep, is that right? So suddenly we had other people saying, no, I'm not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. And that with WikiLeaks, and thank God for WikiLeaks, thank you, Julian Assange, that put us, the American people, that put us in charge for the first time, and nobody saw it coming. So now the American people, Donald Trump, they are in charge. And all of these people that you see in the Democratic side and the Republican, they all have money in their accounts that comes from the Rothschilds. It comes from the whoever owns the Federal Reserve, but they get massive amounts of money. And so they're all just sitting there waiting for Trump to go, because when they goes, then the revolution that we started, it stops there, right? And they're just waiting for that to happen. And they've tried everything that they could do to make that happen before the election. But now that the election is over and the people have risen up and the pitchforks are out and the torches are out, these people are really scared. So now you have people like Adam Schiff, Rothschild's representative. They are all looking for him to thwart this, to be their hero. He's controlling the Rothschilds' money. He's controlling things in the government. So this is going to make this very interesting. And all of the little sideshows and who's the text message here and text message there, it doesn't matter, because they want you to see little tiny pictures. And what you need to see is the huge picture, and that this government had been for sale. And suddenly it was no longer for sale. And now people are going to have to pay the price for treason. Or are they? Because if people are not held accountable for what they have done against our country, then you just can understand, and you have to know it's over. That as soon as Trump is gone, unless I'm running for office in Washington State, I'm running for governor, but unless people like me stand up and take office and take over, it's all done. We can't all rely on President Trump to do everything. He's a 70-some-year-old man. So we've got to stand up. That's what is going on with Adam Schiff. That's what's going on with the FISA memo. I hope you understand it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the description. This is Deceptions of the Ages News. We'll see you next time. Hello everybody, and thanks for sticking around. Now, I know that you stuck around because you enjoyed the video and it really hit something within you and you would like to see more material like this. Well, if that's the case, then I would like to ask you to consider subscribing to me on my Patreon account. Now, I will leave a link in the description below, and you don't have to pledge that much, maybe just $1, $2, or $3 a month. But I not only make videos, but I'm also an author. I have 5 great books that are available at hindsight.com. So if you would like to consider supporting me in that respect, then not only would you be supporting me, but you'd also be getting some awesome books. And what I would like to do eventually is be one of the greatest authors in the United States. But I'm competing with major publishers, and it's very difficult, and you have to have money to do that in order to be able to produce more material. So I have many books in the works, but I just don't have the funding, and if I don't have funding, then I have to go back and find some other way to bring in money. So please consider a donation to my Patreon account, or just go ahead and buy a couple of my great books. You'll love them, and I'm sure you'll come back to buy the rest of the collection. I'm Matthew Hines. Thank you for your donation,